Hello everyone. This video today is going to be a retrospective on my makerspace slash business from the beginning 10 years ago and how it got started. Like many of you, I began wargaming at a pretty young age. I think this is one of the first war games that I purchased. As a kid, I picked strawberries and went to school and didn't eat my lunch, and that saved my lunch money and make up a couple bucks. So got a chance to go to the hobby store, and this game we played till the paper wore off. Of course, we got Dungeons and Dragons later. This was my first real Avalon Hill war game that I got into, and it's a great game, and I always remember it. And I also like building models, so it was kind of a natural fit to get into the miniatures wargaming side of things, and that hobby kind of delighted me for many years. I found myself living here as an adult and had this shed that was there on the property. The guy that from before me stored stuff, and he had a boat stored in there and stuff like that. Had no electric, had no floor, no windows. So I got electric put in, floor put in, and everything like that. And it's a nice place. It's like my second home. I practically live there with my little visitors. Spent a lot of time working on cars. Always been a big muscle car person. Enjoyed getting them and fixing them up. This is a car that, with my son. He drove that at age 16 to school. We found that behind a barn and drug it out of the mud, and I welded it all up for him and stuff like that. So that was kind of one of my hobbies. It was either wargaming, fishing, or messing around with muscle cars. And everything seemed to be fine, and I was fat, dumb, and happy. But I worked at Harley Davidson Motor Company. They got a new CEO. He came in and wanted to change things, and it was unacceptable to me. You know, at a certain point, you just got to draw the line and say, this is not right, you know. And they didn't need to do it. It was just greed. That's the only point of the matter there. So I took a voluntary buyout and left because I was going to do something in my shed. I was either going to work on cars or do some kind of woodworking or something or other. And I thought there may be an opportunity to produce gaming products, because I had been slowly getting priced out of the market, and it was getting ridiculous. I mean, I was a hardcore wargamer, and I couldn't buy things. It was kind of it just wasn't acceptable to me to spend that kind of money. And one of the things that inspired me this was one of the miniatures from my collection. This is an old Games Workshop miniature. This is how they got started. This is part of their first release. It's called Orc on Tusker. So, wound up on eBay, bought this $500 plastic machine. Never even saw a plastic machine before I picked this thing up. And, you know, got to working on it. It turned out I was pretty lucky, you know, just taking a shot in the dark. It's just the right size. It's just the right time period because it's not sophisticated. And I was inspired. I was going to work on an Amazon army for Warhammer based on the second edition and first edition stuff and the fluff that they had in there, you know, make a proxy army. Found a guy on Craigslist, paid him I think $60, loved pen and ink artwork and Frank Frazetta, gave him a little bit of guidance, and he whipped this up. I thought he did a fine job. I don't even remember the gentleman's name, or else I would have credited him, but he was happy with his money. So it's from there the shop grew. I bought more equipment, built shelves. That shelf behind the plastic machine is filled with molds. Built die assemblies, built ejector pin assemblies, learned how to do this, learned how to do that, learned how to fix a lot of machines. Got an EDM machine on the left there, you got the CNC on the right. You can see this in the Proxie Model Shop Tour video in my playlist. Making molds is just a matter of grinding away. You still have to do the CAD work, you have to do the CNC G-code programming. These are parts to a car mold that I was working on, and it didn't work out. There's some days when you just try, and it just doesn't work, and you get beat, and you just have to go back the next day and try again. But I've actually enjoyed it a lot. It's kind of right in my wheelhouse. It's dirty and messy, and gives me a lot of thinking, a lot of creative outlet, and it's been good. And then the maintenance stuff also gives me puzzles to think about. So let's go back to where we started here. This is the first product that I ever made, and the first order I got was on 1/11/11. So this marks 10 years since the first invoice went out the door. because I have my QuickBooks that I've been keeping a track of it. So that little building went there. So eventually I started making bases because I had a wholesaler who wanted me to make bases, and I made a ton of bases for them. Then they stopped buying them. I started selling them on my own, and that's kind of been my mainstay of making bases, and I wholesale bases to people. And I also make things that are of interest to me that I'm using in my hobby, and I'm going to explain how that's sort of fallen apart here, and then how I hope to come back to it. Made some buildings, made some terrain for different things that I was working on. We made some fancy terrain. This was actually a friend of mine designed some stuff. And I work with designers and give them a 20% commission. I made some buildings because I was into 40K at the time. I had like 3 or 4 IG armies, and I even got some infantry made, which was I was learning how to do parting lines, organic parting lines, and all that kind of stuff. Pretty much anything that caught my fancy. You know, you got your own plasma machine, you can make. Some gentleman commented about wanting a timber building in 15 millimeters, so I made this. I no longer produce it, but I made some for him. I was really keen on doing 15 millimeter 40K for many, many years because I just thought it was a better scale. So I started tinkering around with some 40K like tanks. I got involved in some gentlemen who wanted me to make stuff for them. It didn't turn out always very pleasant. Sometimes it was quite unpleasant, but it gave me a look at how the industry operates, how products are produced and as marketed, and how ridiculous some people's presentation and misrepresentations of them and their company can be to the public, the buying public. I didn't like that because I'm primarily a hobbyist, more so than a company. But it was a learning experience, live and learn. I make some other things for hobbyists, which I enjoy doing. I mean, I'd rather hook up with somebody who is, a hobbyist than someone's just a business. So we made this Star Trek conversion, and I made those nacelles, engines, and the wing on the back of there. I make other stuff for him, and it's pretty nice. I still dabble around with things. I still had an interest in working on my Amazon army. But one of the things that I did wrong and where I made a mistake is I never involved myself in Kickstarter. And my business started about the time Kickstarter started. And I literally got left in the dust because of this. I just did not feel comfortable taking part in this. And it was a massive money grab. As a consumer, you can say it's great, but it's just been something that was I haven't come to grips with whether or not I want to do that yet. I'd rather risk my money than my customers' money. So the other thing that happened was Age of Sigmar came out, and that really took the wind out of my sails as far as my enthusiasm for the wargaming hobby. What follows is a picture of all the miniatures that I dumped after Age of Sigmar came out. And there's a couple of reasons why I sort of left the hobby. One, Age of Sigmar was an embarrassment. I didn't even want to be part of it. Two, the miniatures gaming community with all of the Kickstarters had fragmented to some fantastic degree where I couldn't even keep up with everything, and my friends were buying new stuff every other day. And I just couldn't deal with it. I just turned it off. I can't drink from a fire hose like that. So all of this stuff went on the chopping block. But the last thing was kind of peculiar. I went into my store one day and was asking about running a league, because I used to always run games at conventions, always did events at the store to promote the hobby. I was really a strong advocate for the hobby, but so I went into the store and asked about running a league with low power. And the guy gets out the Privateer Press book and reads me page 5, which is really like, you're a complete and total wimp unless you play really hardcore power stuff. And I don't like that. I've never liked gaming like that. I've always preferred a narrative game. I want to see a story unfold, and I want to participate in the story, but mostly watch an interesting story. But I left the store and I felt insulted. I'm getting into my red big block Pontiac 3-deuce convertible with a Muncie Rock Crusher 4-speed, thinking about how I had served in the 1st Air Cavalry Division and raised 3 kids, and this guy's going to call me a wimp because I don't want some overpowered army. Very peculiar, but that just struck me as being that's where the direction that the hobby was going. And then Age of Sigmar dropped, and then Kickstarter dropped with a thing after thing. So to be honest with you, I sort of walked away from the hobby, and I mean, I sold a lot of miniatures. I really did. I dumped tons of things. I didn't really see any way that I wanted to be involved in it if it was going to continue down this pathway of more or less power gaming and constant consumption, just constant churn of consumption, you know, new shiny and stuff like that. So, yeah, this is some of the stuff I sold. The 15 millimeter World War II stuff, I wish I'd have kept. That was a hell of a paint job. I wish my 15s I could get to look like that. I don't know who did that, but that was just incredible. So, yeah, these all went. And I sort of slid into slot car racing because of my interest in cars. And then I got very involved in building models. I built this car to match my son's Mustang. As part of the slot car hobby, I realized that there was a lot of cars that you just could not buy. There were plenty of unproduced cars. So I got to trying to figure out how I could make model cars. And it was a challenge for sure, and I'm still not there yet, but I worked out enough bugs to produce this car. So I'm working on future cars, but I need to streamline the process, and I'm working on that. So it's kind of strange because I found myself doing slot car shows. This event we did at the fairgrounds, kids come in and race all day long. That's me with the track, and they just have a great time. They just love racing, and I take a track and set it up for them, and they just have a good time. So I'm sort of an advocate for a new hobby where I used to be an advocate for the wargaming hobby. And it's very interesting that I kind of feel that wargaming had to go really, really far to alienate me. So these are some things that I'm dabbling in. I have 4 3D printers in the shop now. Like I say, you can look at the shop tour. And it allows me to dabble with 3D modeling, designing stuff, 3D printing stuff. But I'm going to try to make prototypes. I can 3D print anything I want for personal use, but I'm going to try to actually make products. These are some cars that I made and sort of painted them up in an assembly line process, and I've sold quite a few on eBay. One of the things that I've been working on is I want to work on casting molds using lost wax casting. So I bought this little furnace. It hasn't worked so far, but failure takes place quite often in my shop, to be honest with you. These are some no-go gauges for wax shrinkage. I tried to create a system to produce white ink by buying an EcoTank printer and filling every tank with white. That didn't work too good neither. But I got a lot of inspiration. There's a lot of peculiar and oddball cars that I honestly don't think will ever get produced anywhere else because they're going to be so obscure and so unremarkable. So I'm going to work on them. And this IMC is my inspiration. This is their 132 scale car body. This is my box that hopefully will be filled sometime this year with a couple of new model kits. We're working on it. One of the things that really delights me is seeing what people do, and this includes the terrain and the bases and everything. This guy built some of my cars and sent me some pictures, and I don't know why, I just get tickled by it. But something happened recently, and I've been blessed with a grandbaby that needs someone to look after. And this is me looking after her. That's really cut down on my time in the shop. I still have time to keep up on all my wholesale orders and everything like that, but yeah. Okay, so this is kind of where I'm going full circle back to wargaming. I discovered Heroes of Normandy, Heroes of Blackreach, fell in love with the system, bought everything. I've never invested so much money in a board game. And you guessed it, I'm doing 15 millimeter, 40K, 15 millimeter World War II. And I'm just loving it. It's fabulous. I tried to get the rights to produce 15 millimeter plastic Space Marines. But Devil Pig Games wouldn't cooperate. Games Workshop was willing to, but Devil Pig was not willing to. So I'm just 3D printing my own. It's just a blast. And obviously I got World War II stuff now too, because Heroes of Normandy is a World War II game. It's a board game, but it's kind of miniatures. So this has really reinvigorated my interest in the hobby as far as that goes. Although what I can produce and sell, I don't know. The other thing that happened is there is a web channel on YouTube called Geek Gamers. Their solo wargaming show. Those two channels have inspired me to look into solo gaming. And I've been getting out some of my old Hammer stuff and just enjoying the heck out of it. So I think I'm going to hold on to what I have left, and it's come full circle. I think I've gotten over my Age of Sigmar revulsion. So for this year, I don't have very much babysitting to do. The weather's going to break eventually. Someday I'd like to replace my old muscle cars that I sold off with a new Challenger at some point. So maybe this year I'll make some things and try to bank some money and see what's going on. But regardless, it's been a heck of a fun 10 years. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been there all along. I mean, the interactions that I have with people, it's just wonderful. And I can't thank people enough. So, yeah, we'll see what's coming up. But I'm going to keep plugging away. And you guys take care. Thanks.